Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here for episode 20. Boy, we have a heck of a writer here, and I'll tell you about her in a minute. I just want to mention my last episode 19, where I really laid it on you on how to create quality products from nothing. And I do mean quality. I don't put out or advocate shoddy work. So you got to check out episode 19. Now, our sponsor is the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. This is a distance learning school that can get you highly marketable skills in about 6 months without burying you in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt as a traditional school would. It's a great to retrain yourself if you're an adult, and it's super great start for young people that don't want to party away the next 4 years and then get a job slinging coffee and driving a junk car. Check it out at imtcva.org, and we'll have that in the show notes. All right, let's get to the main event. Carol J. Amato is an award-winning author of 26 books. Imagine that, 26 books and 200 articles in national magazines. 4 more books are due out in 2018. 2 nonfiction, a science fiction novel for adults, and a middle grade mystery. And I'm not sure what middle grade is. I'm sure she'll tell us. I don't think it's like a halfway good one. I don't know. Carol also coaches entrepreneurs on writing nonfiction books based on their expertise, and she owns Stargazer Publishing Company. Carol, are you ready to screw?
Yes, I sure am.
Oh,
Screw
good.
That commute, that
okay,
is.
Yeah, right. You got that right. So tell everybody what you do.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, I'm an author. Actually have 28 books out now.
Oh, my goodness.
So it'll be 32 with the other 4. 200 articles in national magazines, as you mentioned. I'm also a business writer, an editor, a coach, a publisher, and a speaker. As a business writer, I make complicated information easy to understand, and that applies to user manuals, policy and procedure manuals, proposals, reports, brochures, social media posts, marketing materials, etc., because having professionally written and designed materials can make a small business look like a Fortune 500 company.
So people hire you to write those kinds of things for
Yes.
them? Okay.
Yes, I write them for them.
And that's not counting in your 28 books, right?
Oh, no. That's
right.
totally aside
Different.
from that.
Right.
And then, as you mentioned, I also show entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, and other professionals how to write books based on their expertise so they can increase their credibility, be the go-to person in their industry, and make more money.
Yeah, writing is certainly very highly credible. It really opens doors for you, right?
Absolutely.
Now, did you ever have a job, a regular job?
Well, I did during the summers in college, but when I got divorced, I had 2 kids that were 4 and 7, and my freelancing career at that point didn't pay enough to keep the mortgage paid. So I expanded the business into technical writing. And back then, aerospace was booming here, and we had lots of small software development companies.
Where are you located? They don't know.
In Orange County, California.
Okay, all right.
I didn't like the idea of having to put my kids in daycare and then be locked up the best 40 hours of my week in somebody else's office.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, so I decided to start that technical writing business. And I was able to get a lot of work. I mostly wrote proposals and software user manuals back then. And there were some really interesting things, though, that I worked on because of the major aerospace companies and projects that were going on at the time. For instance, the Launch First Strike software manual for the Polaris submarines. And I worked on the space station proposal.
Is that all confidential stuff where you had to have a clearance and everything?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And then proposals.
You have to
for
kill me
power.
now because now I know about it?
No, because I didn't tell you anything about what was in it.
Okay. Oh, thank God.
I also worked on proposals for solar power satellites, which of course never really came to fruition, unfortunately.
Wasn't your fault, probably.
Nope, not my fault. That's politics for you.
All right, so you've been
Um,
screwing the commute a long time. I didn't realize
oh,
that.
oh yeah, forever,
And
forever.
I didn't know that you came from an entrepreneurial family. Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, my grandparents came over here, all four of them from the same town in Sicily where they've known each other for hundreds of years, the families, and they came to the United States in the early 1900s and set up businesses right across the street from each other. And then my dad was self-employed. All my uncles and aunts, well, my aunts didn't work, but my uncles were self-employed. A lot of my cousins are, and some of them have built multinational corporations at
Wow.
this point. Yeah, there's just most of my relatives are
So you were
self-employed. My brother
surrounded
had
by
an
this.
ad agency. Yeah, right,
You
exactly.
wouldn't know what to do if somebody stuck you in a cubicle, would you?
Oh, the thoughts of it. I did when I consulted on site in aerospace, I had to sit in a cubicle. And the noise pollution in those buildings, because they're built so cheaply, linoleum floors and
Hmm.
no soundproofing, you can hear actually those buildings are so big they used to drive forklifts up the hallways, and people would roller skate around the building and ride bicycles in order to deliver things. So it was a horrible environment, and the energy level was just non-existent. It was so awful.
Just a lot
And
of
I
slugs sitting in cubicles, right?
Oh, yeah, 6 weeks, that was about all I could handle. So,
Or at least you knew you
uh
were getting out.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you were advising someone, if all this experience you have on the, let's say, the outside of jail, all right, uh,
Right.
they're sitting in jail in a cubicle and they're listening to this and thinking, oh boy, what a life she's got, doesn't have to answer to anybody. What would you suggest to people that are thinking that?
Okay, well, the first thing is I would commend them for thinking about starting their own business. But I would tell them that at least if they didn't have enough money in the bank to support themselves for at least 6 months to a year, to start the business on the side
Mm-hmm.
and then phase over as the income increases and warrants the ability to switch. But they also have to be proactive. They can't wait for business to come to them. They need to go out there and do what used to be called pound the pavement, even though that's a figurative,
Mm-hmm.
phrase at this point. You have to market. And whether that's in person or online, like for example, when I started my publishing company after technical writing went kaput in this area when aerospace all got shut down and the software development companies all went out of business because Microsoft took over. I had a book called The World's Easiest Guide to Using the APA, which is not nighttime reading by any stretch of the imagination. It's meant for college students in psychology, criminal justice, education, nursing, and business to format their research papers. And the original books were for most of the style guides are meant for the PhDs who are writing for the professional journals, so they don't take into account the lower division undergrad who needs to just have something simple to format their paper with. So I took my technical writing skills and created user-friendly versions that would take them step by step through the creation of the paper and the citations and the references and give examples, which the other books didn't do. And so I went around to all the college bookstores because we have a gazillion colleges and universities in Southern California. And I met with all the bookstore owners, bookstore managers, I should say, and the librarians and got them to order the book. And then one school ordered the entire first print run to hand out to their faculty,
Wow.
which gave me the money to print. That was 2,500 books. So it gave me the money to print 5,000 more, which I then sold to the schools, and I've sold like 80,000 copies of that book, and now my sixth edition is just about to come out.
So you
The,
saw a hole in the marketplace and
yes,
you filled it.
absolutely.
That's
Right,
basically what you did, right? Uh,
exactly.
but I have to dispute something with you. It sounds like that first book was nighttime reading if you had insomnia and you needed to go to sleep.
Yes, that would definitely put you to sleep.
Give people some tips about if they would like to think about. I mean, so certainly writing a book is something they could do outside of work in the evenings, in the mornings, on weekends, and that could help them get motivated to get started. Give them some tips about if they're thinking about writing a book.
Okay, first of all, you've got to have a good topic that you know people are interested in buying. There are lots of ways to check that out. You can go to the bookstore, you can check what's on the shelves. If there are books on that same topic, how is yours different? You
But
need to
that's a
find a
good thing,
different
though.
angle to the same information. Maybe you can see where those books are lacking and then write about that.
But that's a
But the
good
big,
thing that there is books on the topic, because that shows that there's a market.
exactly,
Right. Okay.
exactly. And you want to create an outline. If we're talking about nonfiction now,
hmm
not fiction.
Which is
Fiction's a
way
whole
easier
different
than
ballgame.
writing a novel. I mean, I don't have the brain for that. Character
Yeah,
development and plot and all that.
it's totally different.
How to is much easier and easier to
It
sell
is.
too, really.
It is absolutely. The how-tos are real big sellers.
hmm
So you want to create an outline, a chapter outline, and then you want to write to that outline. And you can do this in a multitude of ways. You can record your information on a tape recorder. You can use post-it notes with your main points and put them all over the wall and switch them around as you think one topic goes under another better.
Don't put them
But
all over the wall at work, though.
yeah,
Take it home and
creating that outline is the big key, because once that outline is nailed down, and as I say again, this is for nonfiction, you can then just fill in the blanks. But the big key when you get it done is to have it professionally edited, and without an editor to make sure that all your sentence structure is correct, your formatting, your grammar and spelling and punctuation and the logical flow of the information, and there aren't repeated words, etc. It's a big key. I belong to several writers' critique groups, and we go through our manuscripts every week. We each read each other's stuff and comment on it. Well, the person reads, and then we comment as we go through the manuscripts. And so we get all that feedback as we're going.
Carol, I can't believe the brains of these editors, because when I had my first major book published, the editor came back to me and said, Tom, this sentence on page 220 belongs probably on page about 40 right here in this. I'm like,
Exactly.
How did you figure that out? That's impossible for me to think like that. So yeah, editors will make you look like $1 million.
Oh, exactly. And so that's a real critical issue. And that's something that I see lacking in a lot of the self-published books that I've seen, both
hmm
fiction and nonfiction. They are not edited at all. And either the plots are terrible in the fiction as a result, or the nonfiction book doesn't make any sense because things aren't in a logical order.
Or that you lack credibility with misspellings and
Right.
typos and all kinds of things that decent English major would have fixed for you. So and it's very
Exactly.
difficult to critique your own stuff too, no matter how good you are.
It is. I mean, you know in your head exactly what you meant to say, but the reader does not get that from what you put on the paper.
So there's a
So,
lot of benefits. I imagine you teach people, what to do with these if they did have a nonfiction book to help them in their business.
oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I do.
What are
The
some of the
coaching program starts with that idea creation, goes all the way through to the finished manuscript. And then the next program is Publish Your Book, which tells them all about how to publish both traditionally and both self-published too.
But I
That's
mean,
the
this can
second
open a
part.
lot of doors. It can make speaking engagements, and you can have bulk
Absolutely.
sales and library sales and all kinds of things, but all of them have a lot of details.
Yes, and there's a lot of tricks to getting those books
hmm
in the libraries. You have to have what's called cataloging and
Catalog and
publication
publication.
information. But I don't see that in a lot of self-published books, and they're acing themselves out of the
And
library
that's
market
not a big
as a
deal if
result.
you know what you're doing, and just to get that, right? It's just a little
Exactly.
extra step that you have to take. And if you didn't know
Right.
about it, there your book is suffering, and you're clueless about it. So that's why people like Carol are great, because they're all over that for you. So have you ever gotten screwed in your business?
Oh, yes. I had a couple of clients who refused to pay despite having contracts. So I
Jeez.
had to take them to court, but I won both times. And then another client wouldn't pay, so I held the manuals hostage until they did pay. But it took 4 months to get the money, and it was $50,000, so it was worth
Wow.
holding out for. So
Yeah, but
they
nobody
finally
wins in
coughed up.
these things. Their credibility is shot. You have to suffer to get the money. Sometimes lawyers. Geez, it's just
It's awful.
There's no winning with people that are unscrupulous. That's for sure. So
No, that's for sure.
on the other side, any bizarre, crazy, funny things happen to you?
Oh yeah. Well, this is not in business. I thought people might want to hear this. I spent a year at sea on an oil tanker and a bulk carrier, 6 months on each one. And my ex-husband was the chief engineer, which is like Scotty on Star Trek.
Okay.
And so it's a subject of one of the books I'll be writing next year. We traveled from Europe to the Persian Gulf and back twice on the oil tanker, and then from Japan to South Africa and back twice on the bulk carrier. And it was 36 days at sea without seeing land each way.
Oh,
you
my
lose
God.
track of time. All you know is it's daytime or nighttime. You don't even know what month it is.
When you got off the boat, did you have those sea legs where, you weren't walking right, or is that only on smaller boats?
Oh no, that's true. When the ship stops and it's at a dead stop and those engines shut down, you feel like your feet are glued to the ground. You can't move. It's very odd. One of the most interesting experiences we had, though, was when the ship broke down. That's a long story and all part of the book I'm going to write, where we came into Japan and there was no room in the shipyard for us to tie up. So we had to tie up next to a Russian ship. And so we had to cross their ship to go ashore. And the Russians, the officers all spoke English, and they were really nice. They invited us over for a party. And then they found out that I was an American and about died on the vine. The next morning, one of them showed up at my cabin door with candy and flowers and books about Russia in English that were sent over from the commissar, because they had a commissar on board because none of the actual crew members or officers were members of the Communist Party. They were forced to stay on the ship. They couldn't go ashore with us. And they really learned a lot because, as they told us, they had been brainwashed against the United States, thinking that we were these, just locked away in prison all the time and that they were the free ones. And they realized when they saw us coming and going as we pleased that we were the free ones and they were the ones who were locked up. So
were they
were really...
Were they meddling in the elections at that time too?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
So, well, what do you like? That's really cool. So, see, I thought you meant the Russians was embarrassed because you were on there and they were going to get in trouble for talking to an American.
Oh, no, but they joked. I mean, I don't know how they could joke. The commissar called the first officer when we were having the party in the captain's cabin, and he's going, da, tavarish, which is yes, comrade. And then when he got off the phone, he said, I better go see what this guy wants before he sends me to Siberia. And I thought, gosh, how can they joke about this stuff? But they did. I guess
probably
it was the only
to
way
keep
to
their
survive
sanity.
it.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Dark humor is nurses and cops, and a lot of people use that as a survival mechanism. So what do you like best about working for yourself, and what's the worst part?
Oh, the best part overall is having control of my time, because I can schedule things as they fit in for me.
Do you really have control of your time? It sounds like you write 24/7.
Well, okay, but that's me controlling the time. It's not like I have to be in somebody else's office from 9 to 5 and I can't do anything, other than that during that time. If one of my kids has something going that I need to go to in the daytime, I can schedule that in. I like being my own boss. I'm not one who likes being told what to do.
Right, I know that feeling.
And the commute here is the biggest thing, because in Southern California, if anybody's been here, 30 minutes to Anaheim from here. However, during the morning, if you're in that rush hour commute, it can take you 3 hours.
Oh my God.
And being on those freeways is an absolute nightmare. And it's gotten to the point now where it doesn't matter what time of the day or night, the freeways are loaded with cars.
Yeah, it's rush hour 24/7, right?
It is. It's terrible. So that really probably is the best thing, not having to commute and being able to work, remotely via the computer is such a boon, and has been for the last, 20 some years.
Yeah.
So it's great.
So what's the worst part?
Okay, well, you don't get any paid holidays and no paid vacations, but I'll tell you the pros definitely outweigh the cons by a mile.
Can't you
Pardon?
hit your boss up for a bonus or something?
Yeah, I'll have to talk to her one of these days.
How can people use your services? What do you got? If somebody was thinking about writing a book, what things do you have to offer them?
Well, I have my Write Your Book Program 101, which is getting you through the writing process. Even if you think you can't write a book, you can if you have the right instruction and the
Mm-hmm.
right coaching. It goes from idea creation all the way through to the finished manuscript, which is then, you phase over into the publish your book course from there. Then also my book, Maximize Your Competitive Edge, which is 17 secrets to make your small business look like a Fortune 500 company.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're starting up in business, or even if you've got one going, but you're not quite sure if you're putting out the right image, that book would be a tremendous help to you. And I can give Tom the link to that on
Yeah,
Amazon. I'm sure
we're
he'll
gonna
put it in
put
the show
everything in
notes.
the show notes. Mm-hmm.
Great. And so it's available on Amazon. It's $14.95. And then the companion book to that, which I'll be working on later this year, is Maximize Your Visibility, which is all about exhibiting at book fairs and trade shows on a shoestring budget. Which ones to do, which ones to stay away from, and how
And
to make sure that when you have a show scheduled, it's one that's going to bring money in.
yeah, that's always a good point. Now, is there a website yet for this, or do we need to just put that in later?
Yes, there's topwritingcoach.com, but as I mentioned to you, Tom, I've been doing the writing program locally. I have not put the course itself onto the website, but it will be up in a few weeks.
Yeah, it might be up by the time they hear this, so
Great.
that's no problem. So as long as we have the links, and Larry will keep in touch with you for the show notes on whatever the most current stuff is. So
Okay, great.
great. So we got to take a little break for our sponsor, and we will be right back.
Today, almost 2 billion of you will go online, retrieving over 100 billion searches for information, goods, and services, and 6 million of you will view a page on the internet before this commercial is over. The world has changed, and so has the way we do business. At the Internet Marketing Training Center, you can study online at your pace to fit your schedule, and you can graduate with the skills and knowledge to compete in the global marketplace or start your own home-based business. Call us today or go online at imtcva.org because it's about time. Yours.
We are back with the prolific writer, Carol Amato, and she's also a person that's taught way many people. I don't know how many people that she's taught to do books that help their careers. So, Carol, what's a typical day look like for you?
Well, I am not a morning person, so
Me neither.
I am up at 8, which to me is early,
Okay.
and in my office, which is right in my house,
How many
by 9
seconds is the
o'clock.
commute?
Oh, maybe 3, 4.
3 or 4 seconds? You're that close.
Oh,
Oh,
well, no, it takes me longer than that to get down the stairs. Okay, let's
Okay.
say 60 seconds.
60 seconds. All right.
hmm And on Monday and Wednesday mornings and every other Friday morning, I attend my writers' critique groups, which I mentioned before. And these are groups of professional writers
Mm.
who get together to read each other our manuscripts and get feedback. And it's amazing that you'll take the manuscript to one group and get the feedback, make those revisions, take it to the next group, and they'll find a bunch more stuff to comment on. Usually just nitpicker stuff, but it's enough to just make, some concept not understandable or some sentence that needs to be moved or is awkward. So they're such a help, and I encourage anybody who wants to write a book to get into a critique group and it has to have at least one professional writer in it. So then the rest of the day, I'm either writing or working on revisions or coaching people or planning marketing campaigns. And the workday usually ends about 10 or 11 or until I fall over in front of the computer.
10 a.m. you
Unless,
mean, or 11?
no, PM, unless I have meetings or social events to attend. And on the weekends, it's work, family time, and kids sports,
Oh, boy.
baseball, of course, which we do all year round, and lacrosse and stuff. So it's
Do the
fun.
kids help in the business at all?
Unfortunately not.
Well, they have their own interest. I know what that's like. But
Yes.
I was just thinking, I had a practical joke entertainment company a long time ago. I don't know if you knew that or
Oh,
not.
I remember you
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
that.
I just couldn't help but thinking when you were talking about that writers group that I would come in, let's say, as somebody that came in from out of town from Europe that was a prolific writer, had won lots of awards, and nobody, and then I'd start reading some of my stuff, but it was just total garbage, and watch the looks on the face of all your friends that think that I'm a big shot. I would just love that.
Oh, gee. That's
So,
hilarious.
so how, I guess you stay pretty darn busy, but how do you stay motivated? Like, what
You know,
makes you want to sit down and go ahead and write that thing when, oh boy, I'm tired today?
well, I guess I'm lucky on that score, but I think the writers groups definitely keep us on our toes because we
Mm.
feel like we have a deadline, even if it's artificial. So that keeps us motivated. But I've never really had any trouble staying motivated. I have trouble running out of time during the day.
To get more stuff done. That's like me. So,
Exactly. But I do credit a high school English teacher for that motivation and that fortitude. And I never had a class in either college or graduate school that was more demanding than his class was.
did you ever
And I
thank him for
finally,
it?
well, I located him last year, and unfortunately, he died in 2012. So I never really
Oh,
got a
gee.
chance to tell him.
Well, that should
He
be a
hated
lesson.
he hated my writing, by the way.
Oh, yeah. There's so many stories of people saying you're never going to make it as what you're doing. Do something else, and then they're a big superstar.
Well, he felt very embarrassed when I won the all city theme contest, and he had to announce that to the class.
Oh boy.
But anyway, he was a very good teacher. It was a college prep class, and he ran it like a college class. And I swear we read every book that was ever printed in the English language.
I
So
don't
it was
even
a
know
tough
what you're
class.
talking about when you say AP class. What does
Oh,
that mean?
accelerated program. I think they're
Oh, okay. Oh,
advanced
okay.
placement. That's what it is.
Okay.
So they're college prep classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was up till 2 and 3 in the morning every night doing homework for that class.
Well, good. Keeps you young. Keeps you off the streets.
Oh, yeah.
So you got any parting thoughts for all the screwballs that listen to this thing?
Yes, I would say that you would love working for yourself if you aren't already. You won't have a boss, a manager, a supervisor telling you what to do, and you'll have control of your time. If you're a parent, you won't have to miss any of your kids' daytime school events. Just be sure to do your market research before you
Mm-hmm.
start a business to make sure that there's a need for it. And don't forget that even if you think that you're going to be able to get out of the childcare costs, you won't. Even if you work from home, you can't have kids interrupting you while you're on business calls. It's just not professional. So you are going to need some daycare time of some sort, unless your kids are in school and you can do everything during their school hours.
Well, and if you really miss the corporate world, you could probably buy yourself a water fountain and go over and gossip to yourself, maybe.
Well, hey, make those corporate people your clients instead, so you can kind of hang out in their offices and go to their Christmas parties and
And have
stuff.
them give you big checks that you then take home and laugh
Exactly.
all the way to the bank.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Carol, I'm so thrilled. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our
Thank you.
screwballs. And
Yeah. Thank
everybody,
you.
make sure you check out in the show notes all Carol's offerings. And if you've ever even thought about doing a book or something, give her a call, find out what's involved, and get busy. You can't knock her credentials with all going to be 32 books this year and hundreds of national articles, which in themselves are great publicity. So she's the bomb. So this has been episode 20 of Screw the Commute podcast. Don't forget about our sponsor, imtcva.org. That's also in the show notes. Check out our webinar on Is College Really Worth It? A lot of the academics don't like me for that, but there's some bad stuff going on out there, and I don't want you to waste 4 years and blow hundreds of thousands of dollars and then work at Starbucks. So check that out when you're over there. I know. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that webinar, Carol, but
Yes, I did.
yeah,
I did. You made some excellent points. And
well,
having taught college myself for several years, I agree with you.
Well, yeah, and there's, it wasn't just me. I cited lots of references of highly placed academic people that are willing to say how screwed up things are. So I want you out there making money, and not be buried in debt. And I have a way to do it, but there's lots of ways to do it. That's why we're on this podcast, so you hear lots of different people. And I got to stand back for a second and just stop and think. Carol was a single mom, is that correct?
Yes.
And just decided, you know what, I'm not going to just go on welfare. I'm not going to just lay down and die. I'm going to go out and make something happen. And that's when she found a hole in the marketplace, filled it, and kicked herself off in a career, in this enormously great career that she's created for her and her family. So we need more people like Carol in the world, that's for sure. So thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. So everybody check out the show notes, and we will catch you on the next episode. See you later.